Hey guys, it's Reagan, and today I'm here to bring you my December wrap-up video, and I'm on a spinny chair. Hee! Whee! Hopefully I don't spin too much in this video. Let's hope, because I can't even help it. This month I've read a total of 9 books and 1 novella, which I'm pretty darn pleased with, because the first 2 weeks of this month I didn't do very much reading because of finals and end of semester business, but since I've been home I've been very busy. Alright, so let's just get on with the list. So the very first book I finished this month was More Than This by Patrick Ness, and I actually read this with Raylene from Padfoot and Progs 07 and Jacob from the 8th Potter. And if you've watched my top 13 of 2013, you know how much I love this book. I absolutely love this book, and I gave it 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. It was so good and unlike anything that I expected or anything like I had read before. If you're not aware, this book follows a young boy named Seth, and he is dead. And he wakes up in his old abandoned neighborhood, and it's all about Seth finding out where he is, what's going on, but also about himself, about his past, and how he can accept himself and move forward. It was so unbelievably fantastic. Just proves how good Patrick Ness is at writing. The man is a genius and my favorite. Okay, moving on. The second book I read this month also made it on my top 13 of 2013, and that is the wrong book. And that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. Oh my gosh, I have given a lengthy synopsis on this book pretty much in every video I have filmed in the past like 3 weeks, but I'll do it again for you, but I'll try to shorten it just a tad. This is a high fantasy novel set in a world called the Final Empire, and it centers around a whole bunch of characters looking to overthrow the evil Dark Lord, and they have a magic system called allomancy, which basically allows them to control the use of metals. It was amazing. It really was. Like, the world, the characters, the story was just engrossing, amazing. I can't even believe how good this story was. It's a big book, and it did not feel like that at all. I was enthralled from page 1. It was amazing. Plus, the cover of this book is also pretty darn fantastic, so that needs to be acknowledged. And I obviously gave The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. It is a must-read, even if you don't like fantasy. I'm serious. It was really good. The very first book I picked up when I got home was Mistwood by Leah Cypress. I picked this book up right after I finished The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I feel like that was like unfair almost to this book, because this is a young adult fantasy book, and I mean the epicness of The Final Empire will make pretty much anything you read after it pale in comparison. Mistwood follows a girl creature thing that is like can turn into animals, and she is always recruited by like the ruling prince, king, whatever, to like protect him. So that's basically what happens. She's called forth by the prince, and she has to protect him. Though the interesting thing about this time around is she doesn't have a memory, so the whole book she's trying to remember who she is and what's going on. So going in, I thought that sounded really interesting, but honestly, I felt this book was just okay. The world building was non-existent, honestly, and that really bothers me. I really like a very rich world that I can envision everything that was going on, and this one, it just seemed like there was a castle and a forest, and that was it. And there wasn't really any explanation really beyond that, and I wasn't too thrilled. The characters were okay. I did like the main character, but I felt like the romance was lame. I don't know. It just wasn't my cup of tea. And I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars, so sad day. The next book I ended up reading was Scarlet by A.C. Guangin. I don't know how to say that. This book, I will say, I enjoyed. I thought it was really fun. And this is kind of a retelling of Robin Hood in a way. It follows our main character, Scarlet, who is a girl pretending to be a boy, and Robin Hood's band of merry men. It's really fast-paced. It's really short. I don't even think it's 300 pages. And it was a really fun read to get through. I really liked the main character, and where again the world building might have been lacking a bit in this novel, the characters, on the other hand, were very enjoyable, and so was the story. So I ended up giving this one 4.5 or 4 out of 5 stars. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. So yes. At this point in the month, the booktubeathon started, so I'm just gonna show you the entire trilogy I read this month, and that was the Ruby Red or the Precious Gem trilogy by Kirsten Gier. I actually read the first two, Ruby Red and Sapphire Blue, during the Booktubeathon, and I read Emerald Green. I finished Emerald Green on December 31st, but I'm just gonna talk about them obviously together because it's the trilogy of the thing. This series is a time-traveling romance, historical fiction type book. The premise and the beginning story is really fun, but as you read through the series and the more I reflected on it, the more I noticed obvious flaws that I couldn't see past, and that was especially with the case of Emerald Green. My three main problems with this series was, the first one, I felt like there was insta-love in this series, like a bad case of insta-love. All the events in this book series took place over about a week and a half or 2 weeks or something. It's hard to keep track because they're always jumping forward and back in time, but like, they were like in love with each other at first sight, and I just don't like that. I feel like you have to get to know people before you can just love someone. And while I realize extenuating circumstances might have made them really perfect for each other, I just think it's very unrealistic to be that in love. And Gwyneth's, the main character's reaction to heartbreak throughout the novel were kind of annoying, because she would be crying for hours on end if Gideon like gave her a snide remark. She's like, oh my god, I just can't handle it. I'm like, just shut up. The other two problems I had with it, the second one I think was the biggest problem, was everything was way too convenient, especially in the last book. The climax took place in like 10 pages. Like the whole series had this build-up of this thing that was supposed to happen and it being a really big deal, and it was so easy to like fix. And I hate that. And it's funny because Enchantology did a video on bookish pet peeves, and that was one of hers, and it's definitely one of mine, and this had a bad case of that. It was just so, like, the whole book series, all of this was resolved in 10 pages. What? And the last thing that bothered me was Gwyneth at times could be very impractical and very dramatic. During times in the book where conflict was happening and she should have been paying attention to what was going on around her, she was focused on very unimportant things. I don't care if you're a teenage girl, no one is that ridiculous. If you're running for your life in a cellar, you're not concerned with if you're a bad kisser. I'm sorry. That's not what's on your mind, and it wouldn't be on Gwyneth's mind. My ratings for these books are as stands. I gave Ruby Red and Sapphire Blue a 4 out of 5, that's kind of generous, and I gave Emerald Green a 3.5 out of 5, also generous. I will say though, I mean, this book series is really fun, and I feel like a lot of people would enjoy them, but it just ended up not being my favorite thing in the entire world. But I would still give it a try if the premise sounds interesting to you, because a lot of those things that bother me might not be a problem for other people. So yes, that was a little lengthy, but we're gonna move on now. The next book I read was also for the Booktubeathon, and that was The Gathering Storm by Robin Bridges. Again, I was disappointed in this book, and I was really excited for it. This is a historical fiction fantasy book centered in Russia, and it centers around a girl who's a duchess, I want to say, and she's a necromancer. So the premise sounded awesome. And I will say the historical fiction element of this book was pretty well done, though I found some characters strange because, well, I knew them in history and it just seemed weird that they would act that way. The fantasy element in this book was not well done. It was confused, diluted, and not very well explained, and some things would take like one aspect of the fantasy that wasn't the main part of the conflict took up like 4/5 of the book, and then the biggest part of the conflict happened in, again, like 20 pages, and it was very confusing and very strange. I really wanted to like this, and I just thought it was okay, and I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Sad day. Sad day. The next book I have to show you guys I really liked, so yay, and that was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Bardugo. That's not a V, it's a U. Shock to me, I did not know that. This is the second book in the Grisha fantasy series that's set in a world that's loosely based off of Russian history. It's not set in Russia, it's a world that it has some Russian historical influences. I really liked this. I thought it was super fun and enthralling. I will say the beginning and the end were really good. The middle was kind of dragged a little bit. But oh my gosh, I enjoyed this so much. I'm so torn. There's a love triangle in this and I have no idea whose team I'm on, and I love that. I am completely torn. I will say the pirateer that's introduced in this book is so awesome. He's like my favorite character. He was so funny and entertaining, and I loved reading his character so much. And it's such a good sequel. It basically fixed all the problems I had with Shadow and Bone when it came with characters in this book. The world building was still great, which I loved in Shadow and Bone, and the characters were definitely improved upon in this book. So it was just a win-win, win-win, and I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 on the Goodreads, so yes! The very last thing to tell you guys that I read was actually a novella, and that was Fracture Me by Tahada Mafi. And yes, okay. I don't know if you know by now, but I'm kind of obsessed with that book series. I love it so much, and I'm Team Warner forever and ever, and this novella was an Adam's perspective. I did feel in this novella that perhaps the writing and the story was not as beautiful as what we get in from Juliet or even Warner's perspective. I still really enjoyed it, namely because it kind of solidified my hopes and dreams when it comes to the book series, so I couldn't help but give it a 5 out of 5. It was fun. I definitely like Destroy Me better, but really it just made me even more excited for Ignite Me coming out in February, and I'm so excited. Alrighty guys, there is my December wrap up, and I will see you soon with a bout of books readathon TBR. Bye!